throw it to someone else who has well-manicured hands. I can't say that means that she's not dirtied her hands in getting opportunities. Adelle Onyango, very well known, but now speaks a lot for the youth and empowering the youth. Adelle, just your question.
So first and foremost, I feel like at the beginning of the conversation, we needed to address two things and acknowledge that this conversation always becomes a blame game because the older generation and the government has never come out to tell the youth that they did fail the youth. You cannot tell me for 12 years that all I need to get a job is a degree. And then when I come out and that degree does not get me the job, you tell me that I am wrong or I am proud or anything, but you have conditioned me in a certain way. So we need to start there and say there has been a failure in that sense. And if we're talking about future jobs and where the world is going, it saddens me that we're talking about developing of apps in university level, while in developed worlds, coding begins in primary school. It begins in primary school. My third point is that all of us here have got to acknowledge that we come from a place of privilege. Do you know that our national libraries do not have internet connection? So when you're telling the youth to go and study things online, where we are privileged in this room that we have smartphones, that we have data. That's not the case on the ground. That's not the case in all other counties. That's not the case in primary schools, right? So we need to address, while we're having this conversation, we're representing the youth who can't be here, who don't have our privileges, and we cannot forget those people in the conversation.
Thank you so much, Adelle. All right, so now we throw it to Dr. Alex Awiti, Dean of Aga Khan University. Dr. Alex.
So thank you very much. This is an interesting conversation, but I think we need to rebalance this to square with the reality of the country. 86.7% of jobs created last year were created in the informal sector. The fastest growing sectors of our economy are wholesale, retail, and the young people running around in traffic trying to sell stuff. We've just completed a survey looking at skills of young people and what they think they have, which gets them employment, and what their employers want. It is marketing and sales, because it is following the structure of the economy. We're sitting here talking about an economy that seems to sound like an industrial economy in a full-blown, fully fledged, fully developed. Is that the future of this country? It is not even the present of the country. So I think the conversation has to go in the structural realities of our economy. We are a warehouse economy, period. And that's why young people think that sales and marketing is what they need. Now, is that where you want the universities to go? We are in this massive expansion of TVET. What are we going to be training there? When we can't find plumbers, and plumbers can't find jobs because those jobs are intermittent and they don't pay. So what are we saying to young people? Because I tend to get very frustrated when the whole conversation turns to bring your own job. All of you sitting here have not created one job that you are holding right now. You are government officials and you're employees of the corporate part of this society. So I think it is an unfair, well, maybe you've created a job, but you're not working in that job today. So you work for Dalberg.
Yes.
Did you create the job at Dalberg? Okay, so that's a different conversation. But the majority of us sitting here, I'm a professor at a university, I didn't create my own job. So I think we need to rebalance this conversation to take into account that there are certain structural flaws in the economy that we need to do to fix. The president has signaled his big four, and I think that's the direction that will help us rebalance the economy and move it from this warehouse economy. One of the things I need to add is the economy grew at about 6.5% last year. We only create jobs at a rate of 3%. So why is job creation or the growth of jobs lagging the economy? Where are these jobs when the economy is growing at 6.7% and job growth is 3%? I think we need to ask ourselves some of these fundamental tough questions, because I think this is not a trivial conversation, and I think we should approach it with a little more respect and understanding that these young people's aspirations rest on some of the policies that some of us sit to create. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Madam CS.
I do agree with the sentiment that sometimes we speak as if when you finish school, the government should just have a job for you. But I think the realities on the ground, we should be asking us, where are the jobs, the next generation jobs going to come from? The next generation jobs or work will come from the changes that are taking place within our environment, driven by technology, driven by climate change. So in other words, we must learn to find what are the societal challenges that we have today so that we can be able to provide the solution. And it's through providing that solution that we create job. I heard my colleague here say, the affirmative fund has not helped. But you know, it cannot be the only intervention. Being able to give a few people who cannot even place food on the table a little money to do small businesses at the bottom of the pyramid completely changes their lives. So there must be other interventions also for different levels so that the total of it is what will change this country. Therefore, I would want to submit that our conversation is always like we blame, but we fail to appreciate what is the 10% that is working that we should build on. So while we are still trying to see how we can solve the 90%.
But in all honesty, as Adelle Onyango said, failure as well is to own up to our failure.
Yes.
And as a government, you could speak to that directly.
Of course, I got a point that many times the government tries to avoid. But I don't think government itself is a complex system that it tries to address and solve problems of its citizens. And I think this is a situation where now we should be working more collaboratively rather than individually to be able to address some of the problems the society is facing. So it is true that the youth, we have to find a way, whatever help is coming from the government, we should not just itemize one and blame it without saying what gains can be brought by that intervention, and the rest of the intervention totals, what is the total of the rest of the intervention. So I would agree that this conversation is important, but at the same time, it should also provide some thought leadership so that we are asking ourselves, even as we now want to argue, education, universities are about providing jobs, but I will not agree. Universities are about giving education for the sake of education so that you can have a lifelong learning so that you can be able to kind of respond to changes that are taking place within the environment. So that can be, so we should not just say universities train so that people have jobs. I think we need to balance so that we are actually addressing the real problem.